There are legends in sports, and then there is Muhammad Ali. He wasn't just a boxer, he was a force of nature, a cultural icon, and a man who reshaped what it meant to be an athlete in America. Ali stood in the ring with lightning fists, but outside the ring, his voice thundered even louder. His story is filled with contradictions, confidence mixed with humility, defiance mixed with compassion, glory mixed with struggle. And when you put all of it together, you don't just get a sports champion. You get one of the most influential figures of the 20th century. Tonight, we're pulling back the curtain on the champ, diving deep into the top 10 facts about Muhammad Ali that reveal the man behind the myth. Let's step into the ring with fact number 10. Number 10. His birth name was Cassius Clay, and that name carried its own story. Before the world knew him as Muhammad Ali, he was Cassius Marcellus Clay, Jr., born on January 17, 1942, in Louisville, Kentucky. Even the name Cassius Clay carried weight. It was originally taken from a 19th century abolitionist, Cassius Marcellus Clay, who fought against slavery in Kentucky. His parents didn't choose the name by accident. It represented a powerful legacy of resistance and courage, even if young Cassius didn't know it at the time. Growing up in the segregated South, Cassius Clay's early life was marked by the racial barriers that defined mid-century America. His father, Cassius Sr., painted billboards and signs for a living, while his mother, Odessa, worked as a domestic helper. Money was scarce, but the family carried themselves with pride. Louisville was a city divided along color lines, and Ali saw firsthand how racism shaped daily life. He wasn't allowed into certain restaurants, wasn't treated with equality, and those experiences left a fire burning inside him. There's a famous story about a stolen bicycle that changed the course of his life. When 12-year-old Cassius Clay discovered his red Schwinn was gone, he was furious. He told a local police officer that he wanted to beat up the thief. That officer, Joe Martin, also happened to be a boxing coach. Instead of laughing, Martin told the boy, "Well, you better learn to fight first." That single sentence changed everything. Within weeks, Clay was training at the Columbia Gym, throwing punches at the heavy bag with a speed and energy that stunned everyone around him. The fire in his belly now had direction. Cassius Clay quickly made a name for himself in amateur boxing. He was fast, fearless, and loud. Unlike most boxers who kept quiet, Clay talked big, bragged about his skills, and predicted his wins. It wasn't arrogance, it was theater, and people couldn't stop watching. By the age of 18, he had already claimed 2 National Golden Gloves titles and went on to represent the United States at the 1960 Olympics in Rome. He won the gold medal in the light heavyweight division, standing tall with the American flag raised behind him. But that gold medal didn't erase the harsh reality of racism back home. Ali himself once told the story of returning to Louisville with pride, only to be refused service at a whites-only restaurant. The sting of humiliation was so deep that he claimed he threw his Olympic medal into the Ohio River. Whether or not the story is literally true, it captured the truth of his experience. America might celebrate him in the ring, but outside it, he was still treated as less than equal. That contradiction would shape his future identity, and it set the stage for his next transformation. When he later changed his name to Muhammad Ali after converting to Islam, many fans were shocked. But for him, it was more than religion. It was about rejecting what he saw as a slave name. He wanted to define himself, not let history define him. It was a statement of independence, dignity, and pride. The young Cassius Clay had become a global figure, and the world would never look at him the same way again. Number 9. He was the king of trash talk, and he invented a whole new way of selling fights. Boxing has always had tough guys, but Muhammad Ali turned it into theater. He was a showman, a poet, and a master at psychological warfare. He didn't just throw punches, he threw words that cut just as sharp. Long before press conferences became entertainment events, Ali was standing in front of microphones spitting out rhymes, jokes, and insults that electrified crowds. One of his most famous lines became his calling card: "Float like a butterfly, sting like a bee. His hands can't hit what his eyes can't see." It wasn't just catchy. It was brilliant marketing. That phrase spread like wildfire, making Ali unforgettable to anyone who heard it. He would predict what round he would knock his opponent out in and then deliver. Against Sonny Liston, he taunted endlessly, calling him a big, ugly bear. He even said he was so fast that he could turn off the light switch and be in bed before the room got dark. Americans had never seen anything like it. Most athletes were polite, soft-spoken, and deferential. Ali flipped the script. He bragged, he laughed, and he made bold claims. Some people hated it, thinking he was arrogant, but many others were fascinated. Even if you despised him, you tuned in to see if he could back up his words. And that was the genius. He was selling tickets, selling headlines, and making himself the most talked-about athlete in the country. But Ali's trash talk wasn't just about hype. It was a psychological weapon. He understood that fights didn't just happen with fists. They happened in the mind first. By ridiculing his opponents, he got inside their heads. He made them angry, reckless, and desperate to shut him up. That's when Ali struck. While his opponent was boiling with rage, Ali stayed calm, dancing around the ring with unmatched speed. He was not just beating them physically, he was outsmarting them. Think about it in American sports culture. Ali set the template for every athlete who used charisma to build a brand. Without Ali, would we have the brash confidence of an athlete like Deion Sanders? Would Conor McGregor have built his empire on trash talk and MMA? Ali was the blueprint. He made fight promotion into performance art. But behind all the rhymes and boasts, there was discipline. He trained relentlessly, sparred with intensity, and worked on perfecting his craft. The trash talk was the smoke, but his skills were the fire. And every time he danced into the ring, the world held its breath. Would he really do what he said? Time and time again, he did. And that's why his words didn't just float away. They became immortal. Muhammad Ali was more than a fighter. He was a performer, a poet, and a revolutionary figure who challenged everything people thought they knew about athletes. From the boy named Cassius Clay, whose bike got stolen, to the young man who rattled opponents with rhymes, his story had already taken on the shape of legend. And yet, these are just the first 2 facts in a journey of 10. Great. He shocked the world by beating Sonny Liston. In the early 1960s, Sonny Liston wasn't just a heavyweight champion. He was a monster in the eyes of the boxing world. He had a fearsome reputation, a criminal past, and fists that seemed like sledgehammers. Most fighters were scared to even step in the ring with him. The press called him unbeatable. He was a dark cloud hanging over the division, and many thought he would reign for years. Then along came a young, cocky Cassius Clay. Clay was only 22 years old, still considered a loudmouth kid. Nobody gave him a chance. Oddsmakers had Liston as a 7-1 favorite, which in boxing terms means the fight was supposed to be a mismatch. Clay, of course, didn't see it that way. He taunted Liston, called him names, and promised the world he would shock them all. He called himself the greatest, even before he had a title to prove it. Sports writers thought he was delusional. But Ali's confidence wasn't for show. It was unshakable belief. On February 25, 1964, in Miami Beach, the world tuned in. The fight began, and immediately people saw something different. Clay didn't stand still like other fighters who had been crushed by Liston. Instead, he danced. He was fast, faster than a heavyweight had any right to be. He darted in and out, peppering Liston with quick jabs, then slipping away before Liston could return fire. It was as if a lightweight had been dropped into a heavyweight body. Midway through the fight, Liston's eyes started swelling. Clay complained that something had been rubbed on Liston's gloves because his eyes burned so badly he could barely see. Most fighters would have panicked, but Clay kept moving, blinking through the haze, staying alive until the round ended. Then something miraculous happened. His vision cleared. By the 7th round, he was back to his full speed and Liston was exhausted. Then came the moment that shocked the sports world. Liston didn't answer the bell for the 7th round. He quit on his stool. The unbeatable monster had been beaten by a brash kid from Louisville. Howard Cosell, the legendary broadcaster, shouted the words that became part of Alias mythology. The heavyweight champion of the world. He shook up the world. He shook up the world. Overnight, Ali went from a controversial loudmouth to the king of boxing. But the victory was bigger than sports. It was a cultural earthquake. Here was a young black man in 1964 America, standing tall, unapologetic, brash, and victorious over a figure who symbolized brute dominance. Clay had declared himself the greatest, and now the world had no choice but to pay attention. The aftermath was explosive. Within days of winning the championship, Clay announced that he had joined the Nation of Islam and would now be called Muhammad Ali. The name change shocked the public almost as much as the victory itself. Many refused to accept it. Reporters kept calling him Clay for years, sometimes out of habit, sometimes out of defiance. But Ali stood firm. "I don't have to be what you want me to be," he said. "I'm free to be who I want." It wasn't just a name change, it was a declaration of independence. Looking back, that fight against Liston wasn't just the birth of a champion, it was the birth of a new era. Ali had shown that a fighter could be more than muscle. He could be wit, speed, charisma, and unbreakable will. He had shaken up the world, and he would never stop shaking it. Number 7. He refused to fight in Vietnam and paid the price. By the mid-1960s, Muhammad Ali wasn't just a champion. He was a global celebrity. But as the Vietnam War escalated, so did the pressure on young American men to serve. In 1967, Ali was drafted into the U.S. Army. Most athletes and celebrities, even if reluctant, would have gone quietly. Ali did the unthinkable. He refused. His reasons were crystal clear in his own words. "I ain't got no quarrel with them Viet Cong. No Viet Cong ever called me the racial slur." Those words cut deep into America's conscience. For Ali, the fight wasn't overseas. It was at home, against racism and inequality. He argued that it made no sense to send him thousands of miles away to kill people of color in another country, when his own people were being denied basic rights in the United States. The reaction was explosive. Overnight, Ali went from beloved champion to one of the most hated men in America. The government stripped him of his heavyweight title. He was banned from boxing. State commissions refused to grant him licenses. He was convicted of draft evasion, sentenced to 5 years in prison, and fined $10,000. He appealed, which allowed him to stay out of prison for the time being, but for nearly 4 years, he was barred from the sport at the peak of his career. Think about that for a moment. A man in his absolute prime, the best heavyweight on earth, was kept out of the ring because he stood by his convictions. Most athletes live for the glory, the money, the championships. Ali gave it all up rather than betray his beliefs. To many Americans at the time, it seemed outrageous, even unpatriotic. But as the years went on, public opinion began to shift. The Vietnam War grew more unpopular, and Ali started to look less like a traitor and more like a prophet. College campuses invited him to speak. Civil rights leaders praised him for his courage. He became a voice of defiance, not just for African Americans, but for anyone questioning the morality of the war. His willingness to lose everything for what he believed made him more than a boxer. It made him a symbol. Finally, in 1971, the Supreme Court overturned his conviction in a unanimous decision. By then, Ali was already on the road to redemption. He had lost precious years in the ring, but his legend had grown even larger outside of it. When he returned to boxing, he wasn't just an athlete. He was a hero of conscience. Looking back, this moment might be one of the most defining facts about Muhammad Ali. He wasn't afraid to risk his career, his freedom, and even his life for principles. In a world where athletes are often told to stick to sports, Ali refused to be silent. He proved that the ring was only part of his battleground. The real fight was for justice. By the time Muhammad Ali had beaten Sonny Liston and stood against the U.S. government over Vietnam, he had already transcended the role of a sports champion. He was rewriting the rules of what it meant to be famous in America. He was bold, he was brave, and he was willing to sacrifice. Two more facts revealed, and the picture of Ali grows even sharper. A man who shocked the world inside the ropes, and a man who refused to bend outside of them. Thurker 6. The Fight of the Century. Against Joe Frazier. When Muhammad Ali returned to the ring after his exile during the Vietnam draft controversy, the world was waiting to see if he could still live up to his nickname, Yo, the Greatest. But standing in his way was another titan, Joe Frazier. Frazier was tough, relentless, and undefeated. He had claimed the heavyweight crown while Ali was barred from boxing, and by the early 1970s the stage was set for one of the greatest showdowns in sports history. The build-up to their fight on March 8, 1971, at Madison Square Garden in New York, was unlike anything the sports world had seen. It wasn't just a boxing match, it was billed as the fight of the century. Ali represented defiance, charisma, and rebellion. Frazier represented grit, humility, and the establishment. The cultural divide of America at the time, between the old order and the counterculture, between supporters of the war and those who opposed it, played out in that ring. Ali, never one to back down from psychological warfare, called Frazier names in the lead-up. He labeled him an Uncle Tom, a deeply painful insult, and claimed Frazier was too slow to compete with him. Frazier, usually quiet, seethed at the insults. Their rivalry wasn't just professional, it was personal. On fight night, Madison Square Garden was packed with celebrities. Frank Sinatra, Burt Lancaster, even U.S. senators and foreign dignitaries. Millions more tuned in on closed-circuit television across America. The tension was electric. From the opening bell, it was clear this was going to be a war. Ali tried to dance, to pepper Frazier with jabs to keep him at bay, but Frazier kept charging forward, digging brutal hooks into Ali's body. Ali landed clean combinations, snapping Frazier's head back, but Smokin' Joe never stopped pressing. Round after round, the two men punished each other, neither giving an inch. Then came the 15th round. With Ali's face swollen and his energy fading, Frazier landed the punch that would be replayed for decades, a thunderous left hook that sent Ali crashing to the canvas. The crowd erupted. Ali got up, showing his toughness, but the knockdown sealed the decision. After 15 grueling rounds, Joe Frazier won by unanimous decision. Muhammad Ali's first professional loss had come at the hands of his fiercest rival. But here's what made this fact legendary. Ali's loss didn't diminish him. In many ways, it elevated both fighters. The fight was so brutal, so courageous, that both men walked away as gladiators. Ali had proved he could still hang with the best, and Frazier had cemented his legacy as one of the all-time greats. Their rivalry would continue with 2 more epic fights, including the infamous Thrilla in Manila. For America, the fight of the century was more than sport. It was a cultural moment, a clash of values, and proof that boxing could captivate the world like no other event. And at the center of it all was Muhammad Ali, whose name was now etched into the heart of sports history, not just as a champion, but as a symbol of courage and resilience. Eve, the Rumble in the Jungle. If the fight with Frazier cemented Ali's place in boxing history, the Rumble in the Jungle in 1974 elevated him to mythic status. George Foreman, the reigning champion at the time, was a terrifying figure. Younger, stronger, and meaner, Foreman had destroyed Joe Frazier in just 2 rounds. He had knocked out Ken Norton, another man who had beaten Ali. The public believed Ali didn't stand a chance. Many feared for his safety. But Ali loved the role of underdog. He flew to Kinshasa, Zaire, now the Democratic Republic of Congo, where the fight was staged under the sponsorship of dictator Mobutu Sese Seko. The event became more than a boxing match. It was a spectacle. The people of Zaire embraced Ali as a hero, chanting, "Ali, Bomai," which meant, "Ali, kill him." He fed off their energy, dancing in the streets, shadowboxing before adoring crowds, turning the fight into a global cultural moment. On October 30th, under the sweltering African night, Ali stepped into the ring against Foreman. Everyone expected him to run, to use his speed to avoid Foreman's power. But Ali had a different plan, a strategy so bold that most thought it was suicidal. He leaned back against the ropes, covered up, and let Foreman swing. Round after round, Foreman pounded away, burning energy, while Ali whispered taunts like, "That all you got, George?" This tactic would later be called the rope-a-dope. Ali absorbed punishment, protected by the elasticity of the ropes and his defensive skills, while conserving his own energy. The crowd roared as Foreman threw thunderous punches, but slowly the giant began to tire. His arms grew heavy, his swings slower. Ali was waiting. In the 8th round, the trap snapped shut. Ali came off the ropes with lightning-fast combinations. Then, with 24 seconds left in the round, he landed a 5-punch combo that ended with a crushing right hand to Foreman's jaw. The champion fell to the canvas. The unthinkable had happened. George Foreman was knocked out. Muhammad Ali had reclaimed the heavyweight crown. The moment was immortal. Howard Cosell's booming voice declared, "Down goes Foreman, down goes Foreman." It was not just a boxing victory. It was a cultural miracle. Ali had done what experts thought was impossible. He had outthought, outlasted, and outfought the most feared man in boxing. The Rumble in the Jungle was watched by an estimated 1 billion people worldwide, making it one of the largest sporting events in history. It was more than a fight. It was theater, psychology, and human drama at its peak. Ali's rope-a-dope became a symbol of resilience, of using strategy over brute force, of brains over brawn. In America, the fight elevated Ali beyond the realm of sports. He wasn't just a boxer anymore. He was a global figure who stood for wit, courage, and the belief that no obstacle was too big to overcome. Years later, when people talk about Ali, this fight is often the first image that comes to mind. Ali standing victorious in Africa, arms raised, the king once again. By the time Ali had gone toe-to-toe with Joe Frazier in the fight of the century, and then toppled George Foreman in the Rumble in the Jungle, he wasn't just a champion. He was a legend, walking among mortals. These facts showed not only his fists but also his mind, his courage, and his ability to rise in moments when the world thought he was finished. Muhammad Ali had proven time and time again that greatness wasn't just about winning, it was about defying the impossible. Year for 4, the Thrilla in Manila. If the fight of the century against Joe Frazier was historic, their third and final showdown, the Thrilla in Manila, was something beyond sport. It was one of the most brutal, exhausting, and unforgettable battles in boxing history. The year was 1975. Ali had already reclaimed the heavyweight crown after beating George Foreman in Zaire. Frazier, however, remained his greatest rival. Each man had one victory over the other. Their third meeting would settle the score. The fight was set for October 1st in Manila, the capital of the Philippines, and it was promoted with a phrase that perfectly captured its intensity. The Thrilla in Manila. From the moment Ali and Frazier landed, the atmosphere was electric. The tropical heat was stifling, with temperatures soaring above 100 degrees inside the arena. The air was thick, humid, and suffocating. Yet, despite the unbearable conditions, the arena was packed to capacity. Millions more tuned in around the world, eager to see the conclusion of boxing's greatest rivalry. Ali, as always, played the showman before the fight. He hurled insults at Frazier, calling him the gorilla, and even joked about beating him in Manila. But, behind the bravado, Ali knew this fight would test him like no other, and Frazier, humiliated by Ali's constant taunts, was determined to silence him forever. When the bell rang, it was war. Ali opened strong, using his jab and combinations to punish Frazier early. He danced, moved, and peppered him with sharp shots. Frazier, undeterred, marched forward, slamming hooks into Ali's body and head. Round after round, the two men exchanged blows in a brutal dance of pain and endurance. By the middle rounds, Frazier's eyes were nearly swollen shut from Ali's precise punches. But Ali was suffering too. The heat drained his energy, and Frazier's relentless body shots made it hard for him to breathe. Each man pushed past human limits, fueled only by pride and the desire to destroy the other. Then came the 14th round. Ali unleashed a furious barrage of punches that left Frazier staggering. His trainer, Eddie Futch, saw the danger. He made the heartbreaking decision to stop the fight before the 15th round. Frazier, blinded and battered, begged to continue, but Futch refused. "Sit down, son," he said. "It's over. Nobody will ever forget what you did here today." Ali collapsed on his stool, completely spent, and would later say it was the closest thing to death he had ever felt. "It was the closest thing to dying that I know of," he admitted. He called Frazier the greatest fighter of all times, next to me. That moment wasn't just about victory. It was about survival. The thriller in Manila became the stuff of legend. Two warriors had given everything, blood, sweat, and nearly their lives, in pursuit of glory. Ali won, but in the process, both men secured immortality. The fight is often cited as the greatest heavyweight bout in history, not just for the skill, but for the sheer willpower on display. For America and the world, it was proof that Muhammad Ali was more than just a talker. He was a fighter willing to walk through hell itself and still find the strength to raise his hand in victory. And though Ali and Frazier carried scars from that night, the thriller in Manila remains one of the defining moments of Ali's career and of boxing itself. There were three. His legacy went beyond the ring. Muhammad Ali's fists may have made him famous, but his true greatness was forged outside the ropes. Long after the titles, the victories, and the rivalries, what remains most powerful about Ali is his impact on culture, politics, and humanity. From the 1960s onward, Ali became a voice for the voiceless. He challenged racism with unapologetic pride, refusing to bow to a system that tried to silence him. He spoke about black identity with confidence, telling Americans that he wasn't just an athlete, he was a man demanding respect. His conversion to Islam and his rejection of the name Cassius Clay were statements of independence at a time when conformity was expected. When he refused the draft for Vietnam, he became a symbol of conscience. At a time when many celebrities stayed silent, Ali put everything on the line to stand by his beliefs. His courage inspired generations of activists. In fact, leaders of the civil rights movement, from Martin Luther King Jr. to Malcolm X, recognized his bravery as a turning point in how Black Americans could challenge injustice. Ali's influence extended far beyond America. He became a global icon. In Africa, he was celebrated as a hero of the people. In Asia and the Middle East, his conversion to Islam gave him a special place in the hearts of millions. He traveled the world, meeting leaders, children, and fans everywhere, always carrying himself with dignity and charm. Even after his boxing career ended, Ali continued to use his platform for good. He supported humanitarian causes, visited refugee camps, and raised awareness for peace and understanding. One of his most symbolic moments came in 1996 at the Atlanta Olympics, when a trembling Ali, already battling Parkinson's disease, lit the Olympic torch. The world watched in awe as the once lightning-fast fighter, now slowed by illness, stood as a beacon of courage and resilience. It was a moment that transcended sports. It was history. Ali also broke barriers in how athletes could use their fame. Before him, most athletes kept quiet, endorsed products, and avoided controversy. Ali proved that athletes could be political, that they could challenge power, and that they could stand for something greater than money or fame. His impact can be seen today every time an athlete speaks out on social issues, from LeBron James to Colin Kaepernick. They walk in Ali's shadow. But perhaps the most enduring part of Ali's legacy was his humanity. Despite all the bravado, he was known for kindness and generosity. Stories abound of him stopping to talk with fans, giving away money to those in need, or sneaking out of hotels to visit sick children. Behind the confidence was a man with immense compassion. Ali once said, "Service to others is the rent you pay for your room here on earth." That quote captures the essence of his life. He wasn't perfect, he made mistakes, said things he later regretted, but his heart was always with the people. He wanted to inspire, to uplift, to remind everyone that greatness wasn't just about winning fights, it was about making the world a better place. So when we talk about Muhammad Ali, we aren't just talking about a boxer. We are talking about a cultural giant who reshaped the very idea of what it means to be an athlete, a celebrity, and a human being. His legacy isn't measured in knockouts. It's measured in lives touched, barriers broken, and voices inspired. By the time Ali survived the Thrilla in Manila and built his legacy beyond the ring, he had become more than the greatest. He had become timeless. These facts show not only the price of glory, but also the lasting impact of a man who refused to be ordinary. 2. His battle with Parkinson's disease. For most of his life, Muhammad Ali was known for speed, his lightning footwork, his quick reflexes, his razor-sharp wit. But by the 1980s, people began to notice something was wrong. His speech slowed, his hands trembled, and the man once famous for floating like a butterfly seemed trapped in a body that wouldn't obey. Ali was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease in 1984, just 3 years after his retirement from boxing. Parkinson's is a progressive neurological disorder, and for Ali, it was devastating. Here was a man whose identity was built on movement, now forced to live with stiffness, slowness, and tremors. Many thought it would silence him, that the great champion would fade into the shadows. But Ali refused to disappear. Instead, he faced the disease with the same courage he brought into the ring. At first, it was heartbreaking for fans. Seeing Ali, who once danced around Sonny Liston and George Foreman, now struggled to hold a microphone, was painful. But what truly defined him was how he handled it. Rather than hide, Ali stepped into the spotlight, determined to use his fame to raise awareness and inspire others. He traveled, met patients, and spoke openly about living with Parkinson's. He showed the world that even as his body weakened, his spirit was unbreakable. One of the most iconic moments of his later life came in 1996 at the Atlanta Olympic Games. Billions of people watched as Ali, trembling but unshaken, lit the Olympic torch. The crowd roared, many with tears in their eyes. It was symbolic. The flame of courage passed from a man whose body was failing, but whose heart was stronger than ever. That moment cemented Ali's status not just as a sports legend, but as a universal symbol of perseverance. In the years that followed, Ali dedicated himself to humanitarian work. He established the Muhammad Ali Parkinson Center in Phoenix, Arizona, providing resources and care for those fighting the same battle. He traveled to countries in crisis, delivering food and aid, sometimes against medical advice. He met with presidents, royalty, and everyday people, always carrying himself with humility and grace. His illness made him quieter, but in many ways his silence spoke louder than words. Parkinson's may have slowed him, but it never broke him. His courage in the face of disease reminded the world that Ali's greatness was limited to his fists. It lived in his character, his determination, and his ability to inspire even when the odds were against him. For fans who grew up watching him float and sting, his later years showed another side of greatness, the ability to endure with dignity. Number 1, he truly was the greatest. The nickname, the greatest, wasn't just self-promotion, it was the truth. Muhammad Ali wasn't perfect. He had flaws, controversies, and mistakes like anyone else, but taken as a whole, His life embodied greatness in a way few humans ever achieve. Inside the ring, his record speaks volumes. 56 wins, 37 by knockout, and only 5 losses in a career spanning over 2 decades. He became the first man to win the heavyweight title 3 separate times. He fought in some of the most legendary matches in history: the Fight of the Century, the Rumble in the Jungle, and the Thrilla in Manila. He introduced a style of boxing that seemed impossible for a heavyweight: speed, agility, and charisma, combined into something the world had never seen. He made boxing beautiful. But his greatness went far beyond titles and belts. Ali represented defiance in the face of injustice. He stood against the Vietnam War at great personal cost, proving that principles mattered more than championships. He challenged racial inequality by refusing to bow to the expectations placed on black athletes. He inspired generations of people, from civil rights leaders to young athletes who saw in him the power of self-belief. In America, he was a lightning rod, loved by some, hated by others, but eventually respected by all. Around the world, he was embraced as a hero. Children in Africa, Asia, and the Middle East shouted his name. Leaders of nations welcomed him. His image transcended borders, languages, and politics. Ali belonged to the world. What set him apart was not just what he achieved, but how he achieved it. He did everything with flair, with poetry, humor, and boldness. He danced in the ring. He rhymed in front of cameras. He laughed in the face of danger. He made people believe that impossible things could happen, and then he proved it. Even his flaws added to his humanity. He said things he regretted. He sometimes hurt those closest to him, and he struggled like anyone else. But he always came back with humility and a willingness to grow. Greatness isn't about being perfect, it's about rising after every fall. And Ali rose higher than anyone. When he passed away in June of 2016, the world mourned not just a fighter, but a giant of history. Leaders, celebrities, and millions of ordinary people paid tribute. Streets were lined with fans holding signs that read, "The Greatest." His funeral in Louisville was broadcast worldwide, attended by people of every race, religion, and background. That alone said everything about who Ali was. In the end, Muhammad Ali's legacy can be summed up in his own words: "I am the greatest. I said that even before I knew I was." He wasn't bragging. He was speaking his truth into existence. And through his courage, charisma, and compassion, he proved it. From Cassius Clay to Muhammad Ali, from a stolen bicycle to global icon, from lightning fists to trembling hands, his story is one of transformation, resilience, and everlasting impact. These 10 facts only scratch the surface of his greatness, but they reveal a man who was larger than life, a man who shook up the world. If you like this video, don't forget to hit the like button and share it with your friends so more people can discover the incredible story of Muhammad Ali. Subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our next countdown of legendary figures and untold stories. Drop a comment below with your favorite Muhammad Ali moment. We'd love to hear from you. And remember, just like the champ said, don't count the days. Make the days count.